All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out to the 2-year anniversary reading of Dark Ink, a poetry anthology inspired by horror. This has been one of my favorite projects that I did when I took over Moontide Press. It was a lot of fun. I love the genre of horror, not just horror films, but mythology, folklore, literature. So it was really fun to put together a really great collection of people's poems celebrating the genre of horror and to have so many different interpretations of what horror is. So what you're gonna hear today is just everybody's take on what horror means to them and the things that either fascinate them about horror or gives them the willies in the night. That was a weird introduction. So this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for doing this. One of the only really great things that I feel that has come out of this current horrible situation we find ourselves in is that we can connect on Zoom with people all over and geography doesn't mean anything. You know, we always joke at poetry readings how we wish that we had a teleporter so we can magically show up in New York or magically show up, you know, in Seattle and all these other places where there's awesome poetry, you know, poetry communities happening. So it's kind of a cool thing that we're able to do that. And, you know, I never dreamed that we'd be able to have a Dark Ink reading with so many people from all over the country at one time. When we've done the Dark Ink readings in the past, it's only been with basically people who are local to Southern California. So this is really an awesome opportunity because there's so many of you that I don't know personally and never seen you read your poems or heard you read your poems. I've only fallen in love with them on the page. So this is a real treat for me. Thank you guys, all of you, for being here. I will be sharing some links later on, but I think at this point, I'm just going to dive right into the reading with our first reader. Remember to unmute yourself, please, when it is your time to read, and mute yourself after. That would be a huge help. And our first reader is Robin Axworthy, everybody. Please give it up for Robin.
Medusa's Manifesto. Once I sat on glassy rocks and gazed out at the open sea. The wine-red waves glanced with sun. I watched the wide-eyed ships, their wind-filled sails woven in quiet rooms by women like me, as they bore my brothers away in search of glory, deeds of battle, gold, or slaves to carry home. How I longed for that sea, those winged sails, but the fine white linen of my caste wound me round. My face was my father's to give away, or not, as he chose. So why would I not curse the gods? They made me woman, gave me beauty, left me bare of every weapon but seduction, that sly dissimulation we used in halls where men feasted, drinking themselves asleep on mead we women carried in curved urns, stuffing themselves like beasts on meat we butchered, cleaned and roasted, while poets sang of battles and immortal heroes. There our fathers, brothers, husbands drank and wept and called for more. I hated all of them. But you, Athena, jealous goddess, spiteful, freed me. No man to serve or carry for. Now I stand on rocks alone, looking out over the spittle-foamed waves as they leap up to meet the heavy sky. My bright hair now a regal crown of writhing snakes. My face is instant death to any man who sets to master me, seeking his own fame. My power is my own. I earned this prize, this curse, my name and story sung by bard and harp in warriors' halls at last, but not in praise. In the end, I am still a slave to the gods, still held by rock and shore, assailed by men, and never to join the heroes high among the stars. So below mothers, holding their daughters in their arms, could point and say, look, there, my dearest, is the great Medusa. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Robin. Great way to kick off the reading. Thank you. I just posted a link to purchase Dark Ink for those of you in the audience who do not have a copy already, or those of you who are in Dark Ink and want to share it with your friends. You can copy and paste that link and purchase the copy for yourself. I will send it out to you post haste. Next up, I will plug those mystery bags. I got it all, Annalena, but I'm going to intersperse these links in between different readers. So thank you, though. Coming up next, favorite local author of mine. Please give it up for Laurel Ann Bogan, everybody.
This poem is in two parts. October Knob and Broom. 1. Wind holds as the bonfires grow, crackle, and spark. Maple leaves fly away, crows caw and caw. What witness do you bear, jackdaw and superstition? All Hallows Eve, and my rusted hobgoblins, so many apples bobbing on icy waters, rise up, shiver, and haunt. Children, bloated and sweet, grin like fat little pumpkins of summer made flesh, predicts gift under a sharp and radiant moon as I needle and crochet shawls from my jagged bones, rattle, cast, and spin, tooth of the earth, and winter is a comin' soon too. What do you fear?
Thank you so much. Love that poem. Love your reading of it. That was great.
Thank you.
Coming up next, a poet that I did not know before submitting to Dark Ink, who I'm so glad that she's able to join us today because I can't wait to hear her read her work. Please give it up for Amanda Bradley, everybody.
Hi, thanks. It's so nice to be here and see some faces associated with this anthology. The poem I'm going to read opens with a quotation from Aileen Sixou's The Laugh of the Medusa. Sixou writes, "Where is the ebullient infinite woman who hasn't been ashamed of her strength? Who, surprised and horrified by the fantastic tumult of her drives, hasn't accused herself of being a monster?" This is Queen Kong. I've been shimmying up skyscrapers all my life, swatting at airplanes that buzz my massive head. I've been holding tiny men in my palm, careful not to squish life from their fragile bodies. I have spent my rage on the bars of this cage. Ripped from my native habitat, I can barely remember I am not a monster. My drives are ancient and furious. I peer into the tiny windows of your offices and see you skitter about in monkey suits. You think you are making the world go round, mastering complex transactions. But the world is simpler than that. It is the stench of my breath roaring at you through fangs clenched in a wide diabolical smile, showering shattered glass at your feet. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's a great poem. So good to hear you read it. Thanks for joining us. I just shared a link to the Moontide Mystery Bag as alluded to earlier. So something Moontide has been doing, because we can't do live readings for you to get all the awesome back catalog books that Moontide has, I came up with the idea of offering a mystery bag. So the price for 2 books, you actually get 3 books, selected and sent to you along with a poetry prompt and sometimes some other surprises as well too, depending on what weird things I have around the house. So for the month of October, I'm sending out every mystery bag comes with a copy of Dark Ink and then 2 other titles. So it's a great gift if you want to send somebody a Halloween trick or treat. You can purchase that. Just make sure if you're buying it for someone else, shoot me a message so I know the address of who you're sending it to, and I will make sure that goes out. So, take advantage of that. It's also something you can think about for the holidays come Christmas. It's a great way to support the press, keep us going in times where we can't have physical tables of books at events. So thanks. Up next, give it up for Kathleen Calvert, everybody.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
I love the anthology and I'm really happy to be in it. I have a doctor's appointment coming up this week, and for me, that's always a place of horror. So I guess it's appropriate to read this particular poem and to create a space of horror there. It's called Exam Room. The vampire lady goes to the doctor, who says she's anemic. Oh, that can't be true, she murmurs. He prescribes liver and onions nonetheless. Surely a dose of Jameson in the afternoon will do, she whispers, but he shakes a bottle of pills that are black and thick as licorice. More red meat, she offers him. And hopelessly pessimistic, he says. The state of the world, she shrugs. He says that she must have a winning attitude in order to be one of life's winners. Her bad attitude might lead to bad things for her, even to the loss of certain lady parts. By the end of this dressing down, the Lady V is a slumped girl in a paper gown. She's a plucked goose, a doomed pullet, a sucker. After donning her Christian Dior and repainting her lips, she knuckles the doctor down to the examination table where she draws forth cat claws of his blood. What a pain, the vampire lady says as the man faints to the floor. Once again, she needs a new physician. Thanks.
Thanks so much, and good luck with your appointment. Hope it's not too scary. I'm right there with you, terrified of doctors. And my father-in-law is a doctor. You think could make it better. Mike Canton is our next poet. I believe he was having trouble getting in. Mike, are you there?
I am in. I am here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And by the way, having a father-in-law as a doctor does not help. Anyway, this poem is going to be called From the Dark Woods, a Banjo Plays. 1. This here story, it's as true as seasons, as dangerous as torchlight, as nasty as old Scratch himself. You know it to be true, don't you doubt me, boy. You won't doubt them gators when they flee a heart as cold and reptilian as their own. 2. Draw near fairy fire, lead the lost ones to their homes, burn live the sinner. Tempo soft for believer, shrill chords mark damnation. 3. Don't look back. Don't look back. Don't look back. Don't look back. 4. Sunday school teaches us, be afraid, just as churches teach, condemn. There is music at the crossroads. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. My father-in-law's actually cut me open before, so that's like willingly, like he didn't like stab me, like surprisingly, like I was laying down on an exam table and he took a scalpel to me. But that's a story for another day. Give it up for our next poet, another SoCal regular, Sarah Christenshire, everybody.
Hello, everyone. So the poem I'll be reading is called The Witch's Advice. I've given you a choice, one that I made long ago when my skin was eggshell smooth and limbs straight as my broom handle. Before this twisted body and leathery flesh, my brother sat in that cage, looked out with pleading eyes, mouth all a tremble, as the sound of the witch sharpening her knives and the crackling firelight whispered secrets, murmured that I could free only one. The choice was mine to make. Neither my brother nor the witch could see. They were too close to it, lost in a forest of trees. But I could pull back, create distance, find the way out, the knife or the fire. Put one to my brother or the witch in the other. Blood is thicker than water, but stew spiced with betrayal has more flavor. Witches are free to do as they please, and if I'm honest with you, Gretel, you aren't pretty enough for your own story.
Coming up next, guy I don't see often enough, but we went through a MFA program together, so it's good to have him here today. Give it up for Scott Noon-Creeley, everybody.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. This is such an awesome collection. I, too, love everything dark, so it's perfect. I'm Scott Murder, creepy, midnight creepy today, because, normally noon. So this is Sithonic, an Eldritch love story, and it's an H.P. Lovecraft mythos poem, because I had to make fun of the guy. Really, the hardest part about being a gibbering, squamous prophet of the old ones isn't the saintly hunters or competing gods, or the nameless horrors who will eventually awake and consume you despite your unholy devotion. It's the dating scene. It breaks you. Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. Don't look at me like that. I don't like the pity in your uncountable dull eyes. And don't whisper those usual cobweb and snapping bits of dark prophecy, those same never-written prayers. Yes, I've tried all the websites. Nasher, Dead But Dreaming of Love, Farmers Only. None of them work. All people want are infinitely refracting selfies, where my true, twisted nature is laid bare to the world. All they want to do is oogle me and send their friends into gibbering peals of maddened laughter and ragged warlock prayers. Also, the farmers popped like rotten grapes, so that wasn't great. Is there anything out there in the vast, flickering catacomb of the universe? Is there an endless, screaming hymn for a terror priest like me? Must I be forced to witness every yowling and cavorting, ghost-faced beast man as he courts some achingly thin, phosphorescent ghoul? Must I lament as I stride across the Miskatonic University campus, plucking souls and flicker flashing between the shadows as if they invented it? As if their great end song were the first? No, don't suggest that. No, I'm done with those places. They're accursed flesh markets. They make me feel like a slab of rubbery meat, as if I were just bloated, writhing tentacles. Like my only value is my hideous, inverted biology, my sticky, heaving, vexed reality. I can't stand that. I'm more than that. I'm endless, really. Besides, the prices and the mountains of madness are outrageous. I can't just throw away a few centuries and a handful of cultists every time I want a sip of dying antiquarian starlight. I don't want to just stare at the singular creatures from across the bar, to spend all night chatting up some inky storm of a cavorting Shoggoth, who's soaked his fetid flanks in far too much poisonous moon water, so that the whole bar shimmers with the lavender hues of his unknowable madness, the way that heat bends light in the desert. I can't bear to pay the cover at Pickman's Catacombs again. I'll end up having to slouch home past some screaming occult scholar, as he weeps into a dead radio for help, as if he hasn't already passed the edge of it all, as if he isn't so far past the silver gates that tomorrow he'll never even have existed. What's that? No, it's not that I feel sorry for the humans. They're nosy. It's just sometimes I feel the same way. That I'm fragile. That I might be smaller than I thought. That someday I'll be as isolated as old Cthulhu, waiting for those strange eons where even death may die. I just don't want to go home to my tomb. It always feels so cyclopean, empty, unhallowed, so suddenly Euclidean and mundane. A place filled not with apocalypses, or creeping colors out of space, but just a room with a rickety table, a candle, an open tome, reeking of the ordinary misery. It's all too bourgeois, too gauche. I can't even be bothered to rally the cultists, to rearrange the stars or spout squamous prophecy. I don't want to lead the unholy procession through the crumbling pyramids of No, I know. It's fine. Fine. I just need to find some new madness, to twist myself into some new, terrible shape, to black out the heavens like a snuffed match, to crack the firmament of the earth like stale communion in the hands of a defiled nun. Maybe take up needlepoint and stay in. Thanks, Mom. I know. For I leave Katan year. I love you too. To the audient void and back again. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Fantastic. Coming up next, please get up for one of Moontide's own authors, as well as a contributor to this anthology. Please give it up for Alexis Roan Fancher, everybody. While she is getting herself situated, I'm going to, Alexis, you there?
All right, can you hear me?
I can, you're there. Go for it. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. This is from the anthology. Latek Lukli is a goddess. And this is called Latek Lukli by Starlight in Puerto Escondido. I buy her tequila shooters at the Cafe Del Mar. She is exquisite. This woman, named for the Mexican goddess of the earth, her eyes the infinity of a moonless night. We're alone at the bar. I am the unwilling sacrifice, she cautions. I watch as she swallows the sun. I should heed her warning. Instead, I follow her under the pier where the wind moans exactly like Latte Kutli, my lips at her throat. As I tongue my way down her small brown reticence. Te quiero, she sighs, breath the clove of her cigarettes. That night under the pier, my hunger fueled by tequila and the musk of her hair, I finger her inside her cut-off jeans, embroidered with crossed bones and skulls, while she clings to me, eyes shut, and we sway to the narco corrida music, blasting from some homeboy's boombox carried on the breeze. It is a steamy September night, the sand still warm from the hot sun's kiss, the beach deserted. Latek Lukli opens her eyes, two blue-black smoldering coals. I am the great Latek Lukli, her deep-throated wail. Ravish me, plunder me, tear me apart. She's crazy, drunk, wanton, a vortex. She sucks me in. My mouth finds hers while my fingers bore their way inside her. And when her legs buckle and her eyes glaze over, I hold her. My fingers impale her until she erupts. Horrified, I watch her body cleave in two, her arms wrench apart, her agonizing screams pierce the night. I should run, leave her there, but I can't. My legs are sinking in the sand. Latte Kutli speaks to me with murder in her mouth. They say nothing will grow until I am moistened with the blood of sacrifice. She pulls me down into her madness. It's where I want to go.
Thank you so much. I just plugged her book, Junkie Wife. It's one of Moontide's best-selling titles. And for all our other Moontide titles, you can click on that link and see our catalog of past and also future books. Our next book is going to be Rich Ferguson's Everything is Radiant Between the Hates. It's going to be fantastic. And that'll be coming out in January, and we're going to be doing pre-orders starting mid-November. So keep an eye out for that. So buy Junkie Wife if you do not already own it, please. It's a great book. and do it from the Moontide website. Coming up next, please give it up for Brian Finelli, everybody. Brian, are you with us?
I'm here. Thank you, Eric, for putting this together. This has been great. As an East Coaster, it's nice to be here. So the poem I'm going to read from the anthology is Reliving Those Horror Movie Nights. I don't want to deconstruct the monster or cite Marx to analyze Leatherface's profession, or Freud to discuss Jack Torrance's madness. I don't want to compare zombies to workers rising up to devour the 1% in Romero's films, or count how many masculine traits final girls must adapt to conquer the slasher. Save those conversations for grad school classes. I just want to watch the undead chomp on flesh, or laugh each time a victim trips in the woods, fleeing the hockey masked boogeyman. I want to sit on the edge of the couch like I did when I was a boy, watching spook films with my father. I want to find the monster cool again, without explanation, without an essay linking him or her to a social class. Give me the killer's point of view, knife penetrating flesh, death by proxy, the knowing I can always shut it off, and that behind each impaled body, there is an end credit, an actor and actress who gets to cheat real death by remaining young on film. No slasher victim faces what my father faced, the slowed speech after a stroke, blurred vision, skin yellowed by cancer. With each rewatch of The Thing or Night of the Living Dead, I call forth his ghost and still see him seated on the couch next to me, each of us munching popcorn, awaiting the next kill. In memory, he too remains younger, one arm stretched on the back of the sofa, not yet hooked up to tubes like Frankenstein's monster pre-creation. In memory, I can keep him seated next to me on those Friday nights, before the next scene, before cancer stalked him, before I learned not all monsters can be defeated or banished.
Thanks, Brian. I love that poem when I read it. I'm so glad to have it in the anthology. And I love your shirt. Well selected, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Coming up next, another Moontide author. And I'm going to plug a little project she is doing for Moontide after she reads. Please give it up for Hanalena Fennell, everybody.
Hi, everyone. So I'm doing mine after a movie called Teeth. If you don't know it, you should watch it. It's no warnings, just go watch it. It's better that way. This is Humanity after the common, or in the common after Teeth. Praise the skeletal keepers of this low belly's howling. I am primal thing to your love. Let this be our wedding, under the muck of the river, lust instead of breathing. When they gasp mouth to take what they want, what's the use in waiting? You are a stranger in my wild cunt low, filled with lack of passive fucks to cradle here. Hitchhike the long way back. The stable of bodies in my heather, heath, and lilac. The sun. You shall worship the sun until she bites you back.
Thank you so much. So Hanalena is going to be one of 3 editors in our next anthology. Moontide's putting out 2 anthologies next year. But I'm going to talk about this one right now, save the other one for another day. Shit Men Say to Me, an anthology of poems in response to toxic masculinity. With 3 editors are going to be Hanalena, Danielle Cooley, and Victoria Lynn McCoy. And we are accepting submissions now. So the link I shared has the information as to how to submit to that for those of you who have not yet done so or want to share it with people. It's not, gender does not matter, sexuality does not matter, sexual orientation, all that stuff. All we're looking for are poems in response to the subject matter of toxic masculinity. All the requirements are in that link, so you can check that out. It's going to be selected blindly by the 3 editors. I'm just going to filter all the submissions and just take the names off of them and send them to the editors to select. So it will be blindly chosen. So please consider submitting to that, because I think it's a very important and necessary anthology to put out there into the world. So thank you, Hanalena. Up next, please give it up for another future author of Moontide Press. His book will be coming out towards the end of 2021 or beginning of 2022, depending on how the world looks. Please give it up for Jerry Garcia, everybody.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure being here today. Opportunity to enjoy the holiday without having the little kids coming to my door. This is called After Watching David Lynch Movies. Garishly dressed bachelors leer at women shaped like dolly clocks. Turnstiles whine like whimpering puppies as 2 a.m. supermarket shoppers, strange hair-netted anomalies, squint through painfully dilated pupils, every sense challenged. Black clothing offends. Double D-sized women wearing only pasties walk suburban streets in daylight. Accordion grinders materialize on public corners. Grinning monkeys torment tottering children and housewives. Everything is swarthy, luridly red cocktail lounge. Illumination is gauzy, vaporous, cigar smoke brown. Everyone mutters, even when looking in your eyes.
Thanks, Jerry. And yeah, that background is spot on. And I love what you mentioned about kind of getting into the holiday spirit. That was the idea behind this reading is, you know, October is one of my favorite months, Halloween being one of my favorite holidays. So this has been a lot of fun to celebrate with you all and get in the macabre spirit. Up next, please get up for a transplant from Southern California, Sonia Greenfield. We miss you.
I miss you all too so much. And I love the way this book keeps coming back every year like the Great Pumpkin. I'm going to read Women and Children First, which is a poem basically about closing ranks. Women and Children First. When the wind changes direction, smoke shifts from the fires. So sometimes it's burning tires in my face, other times it's meat. Reader, I have done what I can for you. Gave you my extra cig and taught you how to shoot. Showed you which mushrooms are safe to eat. Even trained you to avoid congregations of carrion flies and the decay they make love to. If food was plentiful, I shared it. If the moon only shone on empty woods or handfuls of bright sequins drummed up by breeze across the lake, we laughed at nothing in particular. Now there's a menace, a madman pulling off each fence board at the rear of the yard, and I'm crouching with you, a few bullets left between us. Reader, I have this child clinging to my leg, his eyes crazed with fear, his sweaty face flecked with dirt. The sounds of splintering wood and hound-like baying make our hackles rise. You look to me for help, but my field of vision narrows, only able to take in the one I would kill to save. I love you, but you know how it has to be. Grab your gun, reader. Run, reader. Lakshmi Singh says the hordes are on the move, and from this point on, you're dead to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. It's good to see you. You were missed. I love your hairpiece. I thought it was a spider at first, but when I saw it was a hand, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. All right, coming up next, give it up for Seth, one-eyed. If he still has his one eye. Seth, you there?
I'm here. Look and be amazed. All right, I'm going to read my poem. It's called Why You Should Never Make Deals with Monsters. Because they always know just what you want. That's what I keep forgetting, like I always do. So now I'm an errand boy, shuffling up this mountain to a place that doesn't exist. Not anymore. A government place, a thoroughly hellish place. All for holding tank number 4. Or more accurately, what's inside it. God, I hope it's small. I hope it doesn't wiggle or bite or is alive. I've already accepted that it'll be slimy. It's always slimy, always covered in ichor, smelling to high heaven, like death twisted sideways and smothered in gravy. God, I hate gravy. It has something to do with their tongues, how it can taste things beyond this dimension. Some professor explained it, that it's non-Euclidean. So I punched him, like knowing that would help me. Help me get out of this contract. Help me get my life back. Before I called it up, before I reached too far.
Great reading of that poem, Seth. Thank you. Did she make her way in? I'm guessing no. Strangely, the anthology had 2 poems based off of the film Teeth, so hers was about it as well. It's fantastic. You can check it out in the anthology. That brings us up to our next reader. Please give it up for somebody. I'm glad he can join us today because it's always a treat to get to see him read. Give it up for Victor Infante, everybody.
Hi, all. It's good to be back in California, sort of. This is horror movie told in tarot readings. 1, The Star. A young, nude woman draws water from the lake with a cup. This is the mystery from which we all emerge, beauty and the precipice of sex. 2, The Devil. We'd expect that he would be less like ourselves, this beast. We fear our reflection, betrayed by what we should trust. Love being something to chain. 3, The Fool. There is supposed to be wisdom in this moment of hanging. If that is true, it's the wisdom of the grave, the moment a monster's recognized. 4, Death. There was never any other outcome, but then there never is. Some say this is only change. That's nervous whistling to ward off nightmares. 5, Judgment. When we awake to the accusing stares of the dead, we survived. We should be done with screaming. Our screams were buried in a shallow grave. 6, The Hierophant is a lie and always has been. The haunted have no absolution. This offer of salvation is just another form of bondage. We seek the star, but she's vanished. 7, The Lovers, past position. Remember what we were. We were capable of beauty. We were so alive we near exploded before everything was consumed by shadows. 8, Unreadable. Call it the heroin addict, the suicide bomber, or the broken misogynist boy. Call it the American president or the studio executive. Don't give him a name's dignity. 9, The Tower. There is no learning to live inside a burning house. We must leap and scream and survive when everything is ablaze. There is wisdom in this free fall, if we live to tell the tale. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Victor. Good seeing you. Thanks for joining us.
Always.
I know how alphabets work, but apparently I don't because I skipped Leanne Hunt, everybody. H comes before I. Give it up for Leanne, everyone. Leanne Hunt joining us.
It's okay, Eric, if you don't know about coming. Sorry. Terrible.
Yeah.
So bad, so bad. Anyway, I changed my name to Ignoble, so you're fine. I was an I. Okay, one poem. Mermaid, the ending. She turned her scales fish-like to shred my hand. I would not let go of her tail, her hips, that rhythm pounding in my blood, the seas beckoning me to drown in salty want. This is love, the choking. I bathed in her scent, swallowed her waters, and rode on her riptide. She had hooked me, a gaping fish, so I bound her in nets, in demands, in words. This is love, I said, the thrashing. But oceans are never still, and waves take as much as they give. I never trusted the moon. Even with blinds drawn, I felt the tide rise behind her eyes. I tried to kiss away the depths. I sank to her bottom. This is love, the making. With her breasts pressed against me and one hand pulling me down, I never saw the other rise or the silver flash. Adrift in my Red Sea, I feel the fluttering of slits along my throat. This is love, the breaking.
Damn, Leanne. So good. So good. Up next, please give it up for Rick Lupert, everybody.
Thanks, Eric. It's good to be here. I remain humbled to be a part of this anthology, which I consider to be, well, to contain a group of people who are a roll call of the post-mortals, I should say. I'm particularly excited to be able to read this today because earlier today I went to the hospital because I had to have some blood drawn. And when it was my turn to have my blood taken, I said to the woman, "Take it all." And she looked to me like I was the crazy one. As a poem for Dracula, I asked her if I could read it there in the hospital, and she didn't want to hear it. I really tried to push the anthology there in the waiting room, and really I ended up just leaving, being escorted out quickly with a little less blood. I also didn't have time to get a costume together today, but I do have this mop. This is one of the original mops that was used in Vladimir the Impaler's castle in the country of whatever country he was from. This is Vladimop the Impaler. I'm going to read my poem now. This is called Dracula, This is for You. I've written so many poems for the dead lately. Robin Williams, dead, he got a poem. Leonard Nimoy, dead, he got a poem. Pete Seeger, gone, he got a poem. I even wrote a poem for Leonard Cohen, who technically was not dead at the time, but he was getting up there. But how do you write a poem for the dead who still walk the earth, whose story keeps going on? I'll tell you this, Vlad. May I call you Vlad? I've seen all your movies. I feel like we're best friends. I'm going to go ahead and call you Vlad. I'll tell you this, Vlad. My favorite vampire literature is that told from the point of view of the vampire. I'm looking at you, Anne Rice. I really am looking at her. She's right off camera. Stop distracting me, Anne Rice. If I hadn't been assigned to read The Vampire Lestat at, of all places, a Jewish undergraduate college, I'd always suspected Judaism and vampirism were much more connected than the literature of either would have you believe. If I hadn't read that book, I probably would have regarded you with the same general affection as, say, Frankenstein. But the story of that vampire let me get inside your head. Even though your story, Vlad, is typically told from the point of view of those who regard you as evil. I know what's really up. You're a love story, an immortal being who just wants to hook up with a little human hottie forever. I get it. Quiet, Anne Rice. So you drink a little blood, or that's all you ever drink. Who doesn't? I can't tell you how many times I thirstily opened the fridge and there's my choice, either the acai juice from Whole Foods, Knudsen, or the human blood, which I keep in the fridge for some reason, even though we all know it's better warm. It's a tough choice. I get it. Vlad, the Impaler. And don't worry, I think the statute of limitations on all the impalings you did as a human has run out. I mean, look, impalings isn't even a word anymore according to spell check. You're good. I'm on your side. So if you could just bring me on over, I'm ready. And you don't have to worry. My blood's kosher. But take me. I want to see the future. I put a penny in the bank and I want to laugh in 1,000 years when I'm the richest guy in Van Nuys. I want to see what buildings fall and what empires rise. I can handle it. I hardly ever go out in the daytime anyway. I'm a poet after all, and a freelancer. I work from home. Take me to the other side, Vlad. We'll find her together, and I am so thirsty.
Great poem, Rick. It's good to hear you read it again.
Thank you.
Up next, another past Moontide author. Give it up for Daniel McGinn, everybody.
Okay, I get to follow Rick. That was great. It's an honor to be here. I'm really enjoying the show, so I'll just get to this poem. It's a short one. It's called She Painted Her Nails. She painted her nails black. She wanted them to match her lips. She painted her nails with a hammer. Pain was the house she was building. She painted her nails and hands. Her arm slid out of the canvas. She grabbed the watcher by the rib cage and made him crack and splinter. She painted her nails in blood, blood drawn from the river. She painted her nails with a broomstick, and she cackled as she did it.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for joining us. Up next, please give it up for R.S. Menger. Did I say your last name correct?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. And I also have a poem about King Kong, which we heard an interesting one earlier. Elegy for Kong. Free from human company, you had a perfect darkness in the forest. Nothing to fear but ordinary death. From that, they took you to the idiotic awe of crowds, white lights through iron bars. What else could you do but grab the first thing you saw that wasn't loathsome? The woman who acknowledged your awareness, the human who could tell you were alive, and scale with her a tower to the emptiness of clouds, the ants a mile below you in their cars, looking up in terror. What else could you do but swat the warplanes they had sent to sting you back to Earth? Brother Ape, your death, though glorious, will not redeem the race that laid you low, nor will you come again to judge. But in that moment, you lived among us, hanging from a needle's tip above oblivion, a life-clutched deer in one hand, dealing death out freely with the other. Thank you.
Thank you, R.S. Yeah, I loved how in the anthology, there was oftentimes multiple takes on different characters or different tropes. So it was really, really cool that there was a few King Kong poems, definitely a few Dracula poems. So it was great to just hear everybody's different interpretations and what that archetype meant to them. So thanks. Up next, one of my professors from Cal State Long Beach, who was always a huge supporter of me, and I would honestly not be doing what I'm doing today with Moontide Press if not for him. Please give it up for Bill Moore, everybody.
Thank you, Eric. A pleasure to be part of this reading and to see how fantastic a job you've done in going forth into the world and making something happen for poetry, and not just for yourself as a poet. I'm going to say all of us should give a hand to Eric right now for everything he's done with Moontide Press. It's really been inspiring to watch you. This poem I'm going to read actually was written several years ago after the 2008 Republican Convention. I had no idea how prophetic the poem would be in a certain way. It's called The Gould Convention. The young ones can't catch on. Stay calm, even when confronted with the hilarious panic of a half-dead corpse. After waiting all year, don't leave the picky eater picnic with any regrets. The old ones give each other shoulder rubs while reading back issues of Gould Housekeeping. Next year's panels are announced. Topiary management. Even a ghoul must plant his garden. Wraith of the year, Eidolon of the decade. The world is not an ugly place, not yet. No natural enemies, a voiceover recites. A very young ghoul is digging holes in a huge field, too far from any city to be a place for mourning. Yet the bereft come here to be alone or grouse. Ignominy, an adolescent mutters. Carnival music, a widow responds. Casual acquaintances, their companions proclaim whores for hire in all but name. Depends on your definition of virginity, said a half-naked ghoul getting dressed again. I don't like accidents, the seduced insist. Unintentional carnage is so boring, so effete. Magnanimous spite is the only motive I respect. Borrowing the sentiments of triumphant candidates, the ghouls repay their debts with orphan toys. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the kind words and the applause. I guess that's a good introduction because Bill said I too am also a poet, so I'm going to read my poem from the anthology now because alphabetically that's where I go after Bill. So if you read my foreword to the anthology, which was a lot of fun to actually write, why I was doing what I was doing. I talk about how I was actually terrified of horror movies as a young child, but fascinated by the box art of the old VHSs. And one of the box arts that I always gravitated towards was the amazing artwork on the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So when I finally grew courage in my adolescence, it was the first series of horror films that I kind of went to and watched. So I was always fascinated with the character of Freddy Krueger, and I definitely feel like the first movie still holds up immensely. So my poem is a poem about Freddy, and it's from the point of view of Nancy. From Nancy to Freddy. How many years has it been since I burned skin to stay awake, to keep from sleep and you? The nightmare ended a lifetime ago. My bed is no longer a fist of knives, and yet at times I miss their threat and tingle along my spine. The hero you made of me. But now, without you, my monster, what am I? I drink soy decaf lattes with girlfriends gossiping over Instagram posts and Twitter feeds. I have too much red wine with dinner, enough to promise I fall fast asleep. I don't dream. Remember the boiler room, how you chase me, a ballet of flames reflecting in your eyes, your blistered skin. Your blistered face, a bouquet of scars, your smile, a snake. How do I get back there? I want to feel fear in my mouth again, swallow its electricity until I glow. Courage, give me your cackle and taunts, your wolf's breath at my door, all huff and puff. Play me a song of razors scraping metal pipes like the strumming of synthesized guitar. I need a soundtrack for my comeback, something that builds and builds and builds. God, I'm so bored these days. I swipe right for every man in a striped sweater, hoping their fingers on my flesh are just as sharp as yours. When I ask if in their bedroom they hide a furnace that I can fight my way out of, I'm disappointed when they always say no, relieved when they never call again. Don't you feel it's about time for a sequel? I think tonight I'll brew a pot of dark roast and draw myself a hot bath. I let down my guard, enough to make things interesting. I can see it now. The struggle to stay alert that pulls one closer to sleep. The drip and sizzle, your hand creeping out of the water like a secret. The faint hum of children singing a lullaby. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for. Thanks, everybody. It was fun to especially write for the anthology, so thank you so much. Coming up next, please give it up for Eileen Murphy. Eileen, do you typically want to go by Mish?
Yeah, I've been writing my poetry under the name Mish and doing my art under the name Mish.
Gotcha. Mish Murphy, everybody.
Thank you. Well, I have another approach to the monster. Frankenstein monster, actually. The monster. Wait. Okay. Father. He wakes up on a slab with the doctor hovering over him with a probe. And he knows that he is composed of scraps of other human beings sutured together, and that electricity is somehow involved, as are the flasks in the lab that catch the half light that falls through the barred basement windows. And he has the impulse to flee out of doors, run naked through the tree-lined streets, maybe meet some friendly villagers. But when he tries to sit up, he finds he is restrained hand and foot by leather straps. For your own good, intones the doctor, who knows a lot more about villagers than the monster does.
Thank you, Mish. Yeah, we had a lot of monster poems, Frankenstein monsters, and I mean, yeah, I love the story of Frankenstein, so it's just great to see so many different interpretations of that poem particularly, because it's a favorite. Up next, give it up for Robbie Nestor.
Mermaid to woman. In the ocean's wavering light, seen from above, her body wears a human form, its crests and hollows womanly, and yet the mimicry remains imperfect, her shape resembling the swell and sudden falling off of breakers in a storm, her striped teeth those of a parrotfish, suitable for tearing flesh, dorsal fin of frill between sharp shoulder blades, wild octopus eyes. All her life, she sang ships straight into the rocks, but could not help pitying the sailors far from home, drawn by voices that promised so much. A predator in love with her prey, she envies their shapely calves, longs to enfold them in her own strong thighs, to scissor the waves and step out on shore. She's only held their drowned and swollen bodies. Just once, she wants to touch their living skin, to scrape the glittering scales from her long arms, her hands. She would give up anything. Her sweet voice, bright carpet of corals and anemones, duets with whales, to be one of those alien others striding the green world.
Thank you, Robbie. Thanks for joining us today, Robbie.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, give it up for Terry Neekum, everyone.
This is The 50-Foot Woman Retells It. You couldn't call me big boned. That just wouldn't cover it. In fact, when I blossomed into a 50-foot big girl with vitals to match, I had a hard time covering all my lady parts. I was being immodest. Curtains and bed sheets just don't stretch that far. And I wouldn't have left the house if they hadn't kept trying to chain me up and poke me with needles. But what I want to know is why everyone thought I was the villain and not my philandering husband. Just because 5 linebackers could have used one of my breasts for an awning, was that any reason to wrap me in iron and wimpily try to sedate me? And prior to my growth spurt, what did I ever do wrong other than amass 50 mil that my rat husband Harry wanted to share with that summer stock floozy, Honey Parker? Oh, sure, I tippled a bit and was fond of midnight drives alone in the desert. I guess that was my downfall, not running when the saucer planted its light within yards of my car, when that enormous hand reached out and all I could do was scream. Oh, well. Aside from the nuisance of needing to play kickball with a few trucks trying to block my way downtown, for a while, it felt good to be the woman in power, to really hear the roar of my thunder thighs, to rip the roof off the bar where Harry and his bitch were hiding, and make that gaslighting husband of mine squeak with fear. Oh, and when I lifted that ceiling beam like a pickup stick and dropped it on Honey, crush mush, what a rush. After that, as in all good 50s movies, the writing was on the wall, but at least I got in one last grab for Harry. And so when that exploding power tower torched my 50 feet, I was ready to lay down my arms, open my hand, and expose that bounder for the bug he was. After all, he tried to shoot me. And though bullets bounced right off, it hurt my feelings. And really big girls have really big feelings.
Great last line. I love it, Terry. Thank you so much. Terry is also a Moontide author. Dead Letter Box is available on our past catalog. You go to our website, you can find it. Up next, our latest Moontide book. Somebody I was in the MFA program with. This was a really fun project. It's actually a poetry graphic novel. Alan Passman, I think he's going to share the screen so you can actually see the art to this poem as it appears in his book. But the poem itself appears on the page in the anthology as well too. And if you want to purchase When the Pain Starts, I am sharing the link right now. And Alan, you there, good sir?
That I am.
All right.
So again, I'd like to extend a thank you and a warm welcome to everybody for doing this. This was a really fun anthology to be a part of, and all kudos go to Eric as always. So as Eric just mentioned, I've got a new book out on Moontide, which is, what is the actual title? It's When the Pain Starts. poetry is sequential art. So I'm going to be doing a screen share. So I'll be reading a poem that I did at one of our last readings. And I've also got a book launch coming up. I'll share the link to that after I'm done. Okay, but let me go ahead and do a screen share. It feels like I'm teaching right now because this would be my Monday through Thursday, usually. Sitting here.
Are you always wearing the cape when you're teaching?
I fucking wish. They would dig it though, you know, these Generation Z kids. Okay, so this is the poem. It's in the book as well. And I think I froze a little bit, so just give me one quick second. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna turn off my video so that this goes a little bit more smoothly. There we go. So this one is called In My Time of Need, Dracula Comes to Me. Sorry, I'm freezing like really bad. Okay. There we go. My nothing wants to work. Okay, there we go. Just like a regular work day. Come on over. Okay. In my time of need, Dracula comes to me. The emerald mists slither under my doorway as he takes shape. He's clad in black save for the red velvet lining his cape. His crimson eyes perch over an aquiline nose, not unlike my own, which underneath it rests a thin mustache. I don't bother to ask him why he's come, and I do not fear him. He, a regular fixture in my life since childhood, when I would dress as him for fun, takes a seat at my bed's edge. His thick, ebony hair slicked back shines as if he and it were still alive. In a strong but intelligible Romanian accent, he says, "My friend, what troubles you so that you might summon me?" On a conscious level, I don't know where to begin, because while others might recede from the darkness, I run towards it full speed. There's safety in the cover of the night, in a darkened room, and in thoughts on the lower end of mania. Yet I reply with one word: life. He says, "I have lived many, and they pass like hours do for you and your kind." And I ask, why is there so much pain? His long nailed hand rests on my leg when he replies with the care of a father, "That's how you know you're not dead." With hand on hand, I ponder this musing, and tears well and pour and cover my cheeks like a flash flood quenching a bone-dry riverbed. And a single droplet of blood trickles from the corner of one of his eyes when he says, "My child, it would be my deepest hope to tell you that it gets easier, but I can't, as I've had many a would-be hunter attempt to pierce my heart with a wooden stake. Yet here I am, I persist through those that would perpetuate my legend. Find those people in your own existence, embrace them, and you will live on forever through them." And I sit there thinking, as the cruelest voice which lives inside and oft tries to usurp the skull-sized kingdom on my mind screams from the recesses, "You will never find them." And it's as if the Dark Prince of Wallachia hears and knows my thoughts. A myriad of them are already here. Just gaze around and you'll see who matters and who believes you are important as well. And with that, he becomes a bat, and I crack open my window so he might fly on to be someone else's villain. But right then, he was my hero. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. So I shared the link to to purchase Alan's book, and I don't know if he's yet shared the link to his online virtual reading, but you can check that out. So please do. Thanks, Alan. It was a really fun project, and the illustrations in all the poems in that collection are just, each one's different. I think you only have one artist that repeats, but each one just really fits for the poem. So great job collaborating with the artists for that book, Alan. You really found the right artist for each poem. Up next, please give it up for Lee Rossi, everybody. Lee, you with us?
I certainly am. Hi. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm another one of the geographically distant poets here. I'm only up in the Bay Area. I got to say, I did another Zoom reading earlier today, and we are a much straighter group of poets up here, much less given to weirdness and theatricalness. And I love the theatricality of the LA poetry scene. I think it's always been there, and it just keeps growing exponentially. Okay, well, I've got a poem about toxic masculinity, speaking of that subject. It's called Close Encounters of Another Kind. F now realizes that she should have paid closer attention in her exobiology class. At the time, she didn't care that this particular species, whom she always thought of as the blob, could fashion its pseudopodia into any form of appendage, head or arms and legs, her favorites being dorsal fins and the ridge of plates favored by Stegosaurus, all quite convincing. No wonder they spread so quickly through the known planets, these deft infiltrators, able to mimic the exact outlines of any apex predator. What she was looking at was a fairly brawny male of her own species, totally naked and sporting a giant penis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, totally naked and sporting a giant penis the size of a large flashlight. The fact that they were both floating in the zero gravity of her spaceship made the encounter almost laughable. Would her laughter have become alarm if she had remembered the creature's ability to simulate not just the form, but the chemistry, in this instance, the sexual chemistry of target species, chemistry which at the moment was causing her to focus almost exclusively on the large red pseudoglands aimed at her oral cavity. After that particular docking maneuver, performed with more than the usual enthusiasm, a certain recklessness even, they tried others, all of them fairly pleasant, at least in her current state of chemically induced euphoria. Give him credit, she thought. He puts the X in extraterrestrial. How she escaped the creature's ever-changing clutches, she couldn't remember. Maybe he simply left. They do that. Maybe she blasted him into his constituent molecules. She had done that more than once, which in any case were now being filtered from her air and water supply. All she knew was that one morning she awoke to find her bed filled with a clutch of small, needy creatures, which looked vaguely like herself, only globular. Oh well, she had always wanted to be a mother. No reason to think her situation, floating out there all alone, would be any different if the blob had been human. Sometimes fake is just as good as the real thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. That Zoom bomb, as somebody put it, that was actually my bad. I apologize. I was prepping the next thing. So sorry, Lee. It's always fun when the host makes the mistake that he doesn't want anybody else to make. So thank you, Lee. Thank you so much. Yeah, us Southern California poets, we're a nutty bunch, capes and horns and all sorts of things. So coming up next, this is really, I'm glad that we're able to do what I'm about to do. So this poet, not really a poet, she's a science fiction writer. And she's over on the East Coast as well. she's also disabled, and we were speaking because she never knows exactly kind of what's going to happen with her body, that doing a live reading is very difficult for her. So she asked if she could film herself reading, and I said, yeah, absolutely. I don't think she's with us right now, but I love this poem. It's a rhyming poem, and those of you who know me know that, especially when I teach workshop, I'm not big on rhyme, but this poem is so touching. I'm also a dog person, so it just kind of hit home with me. So I'm going to screen share and share her video of her reading it. Whether she's here or not, that's what she wanted me to do. So I'm going to respect those wishes. And it's really fantastic. So this is Jennifer Lee Rossman. And like I said, she's a science fiction writer primarily. So I'm going to share the screen now.
The Dog Who Walked with Zombies by Jennifer Lee Rossman. The landscape was awash in death, a gray and dreary scene that bordered on macabre at times and other times serene. The life had gone from earth and left its desiccated husk to roam in perpetuity amid eternal dusk. Humanity had crumbled as the dead began to rise. Survivors only ventured from their bunkers for supplies. The hollow shells of people passed with lifeless eyes of black, now wandered through the woods and towns just waiting to attack. They moaned and groaned and swayed their arms in listless, tired ways. The hordes could stretch for miles, and they walked for countless days. Some smaller groups existed, made of half a dozen ghouls, who likely once were families, but now were vacant pools, where once had been a consciousness, where once existed dreams. Their bodies were contorted into silent, endless screams. They didn't know their families and loved each other not. They'd leave behind a fallen friend to decompose and rot. Vicinity their only bond, and food their only urge. They wandered day and night to an imaginary dirge. The dog who walked with such a group had loved her master so, and by his side she faithfully had watched his spirit go. And when he rose and walked again, she followed at his heel and stayed with him as he went through his living dead ordeal. He didn't smell the same, of course, and never scratched her head the way he used to do each night before they went to bed. He hadn't talked to her in months. Emotions weren't shown, and though the woods were full of sticks, he languished there, unthrown. The loyalty she felt for him was not the least stirred, and joyfully she trotted with her little zombie herd. She left them periodically to go in search of food, and here and there she caught some naps, but never lost her brood. Her very soul existed for her master, live or dead, and moments when his hand would dangle low and touch her head. For months, or maybe years, they walked, the zombies and the dog. Around them swirled a smoky mist, an eerie, chilly fog. They hadn't fed in quite some time. The dog was growing weak, but now her nose detected it. The scent was quite unique. She bounded forward recklessly, the zombies close behind. To her, the smell was ecstasy, a scent that did remind of barbecues on summer days and sneaking table scraps, and life before society had undergone collapse. Her master had no memories, but he and all the rest were guided by an instinct that could never be repressed. They came upon a little house. The door was boarded shut, and luscious smells of roasting beef came wafting from the hut. A fence around the property prevented their advance, and soon enough the zombies would recover from their trance and shuffle off in search of something easier to eat. The dog began to whine and bark, just longing for a treat. The dog awaited eagerly. Her tail began to thrash from side to side, and to the ground her drool began to splash. The zombies that surrounded her were equally enthused, and from their mouths and open wounds, excitement slowly oozed. A shot rang out. Her master groaned and crumpled to the ground. Another awful round of shots. Her zombies all around were lifeless heaps of skin and bones. Her master wouldn't rise. She licked his face and pawed his arm as sorrow filled her eyes. Her mournful howls filled day and night. She wouldn't leave his side and slept beside the rotting flesh of people who had died. The person with the beef and gun attempted to persuade the dog to come inside the hut, but stubbornly she stayed. Her body slowly withered, and her ribs did now protrude. The life had left her soulless eyes. Her growl was low and crude. When she had nearly given up, her heart began to slow. A light appeared before her eyes. Her master had to know that she had been a faithful dog until the very end, through life and death and life again, a zombie's faithful friend. She closed her eyes and settled in, but then she heard a sound. A little group of living dead was walking past the hound. With nothing else to do but die, she found the will to stand and walked as one with all the dead that roamed across the land.
Wow.
There's Jennifer Lee Rossman. You can find her more online if you're interested in her work. Yeah, that poem, just when I read it, it just tugged at my, like, ripped my heart out. Just the idea of this dog just, you know, trying to like be faithful to his master after their master has been turned to a zombie is just gut wrenching, absolutely gut wrenching. So I'm so glad she was able to share that with us. So thank you, Jennifer Lee. Yeah, we hope to see more of you in Moontide Anthologies. Up next, this poet just informed me that her book just won an award. So that is exciting. Please give it up for Beth Ruscio, everyone. Beth, you still with us?
Myself here. I'm here. Can you see me?
Now we can. Hello.
Hello.
I like your hat.
Oh, thank you. This belonged to my dad. This poem recounts the positively true story of a poet and actress making a horror movie, and on the 3 days that I was dead, which was a surprisingly serene experience, I composed, what became this poem. And by the way, I also know the actor that plays Freddy Krueger, Eric. He's a good friend of mine, Robert Englund. Correcting for death. I play this character, Dead Judith, on the call sheet. With a paint gun, a makeup specialist in effects sprays a dead person's face on my face. Steady with brushes made of a single eyelash, hand mixed color concoctions are applied, correcting for death. Stria for coagulation under the skin. The mottled freckling of an overripe peach for blood splash. A sculpted bullet hole in my temple. An exit wound, weeping syrup out my cheek. Grips, remove the rear view mirror from the 3/4 ton pickup where I am slaughtered. Not for my sake, for the camera angle. I'm in an onion field. Gore drips off the shattered passenger side window. Brains puddle on the Naugahyde seat. Lunch isn't for hours. We'll be on this shot forever. And let me tell you, when you are dressed like a dead person, no one wants to eat with you at the lunch table.
I love that poem. It was such a different perspective. So thank you. I'm glad it was able to be a part of a Dark Ink. Thanks, Beth. Good seeing you.
Thank you. Yes.
Up next, this poet sent work because my buddy Henry coerced them to, and I'm glad he did. Please give it up for Jason Schneiderman.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. So this particular poem is in my new book, Hold Me Tight. So I'm an honorary Los Angeles poet because my press, Redhead, is in Los Angeles, even though I am in New York, where we have so many poets that we actually have poetry microclimates. It's hard to get the weather report on poetry. Little Red Riding Hood, season 12. You'd think people would get tired of it by now. The way the wolf dies at the end of every season, but turns out not to have died. And certainly fans point out that the Joker never dies in the Batman comics. that Blofeld is always on his way back to battle James Bond. And if anything, the complaint that gains the most traction is not that the wolf should meet a singular fate, like Circe or Moriarty, even though he had his own tendency to come back, but rather at how much more extreme the peril that Little Red is placed in each season. In season 8, the use of medieval torture devices was extremely upsetting. Several parenting organizations boycotted the show after the suggestion that Little Red had been experiencing flashbacks in season 10 and that there had been no wolf at all, only her fears and trauma. I found season 11 the hardest to watch and more or less stopped after Little Red was doused in gasoline and sobbed while the wolf flicked lit matches at her and the two corrupt cops in league with the wolf explained to her how they would cover it up. The bathtub scene in season 12 didn't entirely surprise me, but still, that happened to someone I know, and I won't be watching season 13 when they've promised to finally kill the wolf and fill him full of stones. Because even if they keep their promise, there'll be another season, as long as there are still viewers. That's how stories work, how they keep getting told over and over and over, as long as people will listen.
Congratulations on your book, Red Hen. That's fantastic. I'm glad Henry sent you on over to us. What the thing I was going to say next was that these next two poets were both poetry hosts when I first started going to open mics. So they're reading back to back. It just happens to fall that way with the alphabet. So all the mistakes that I've made tonight, I've learned from them. First up is my good buddy Rob Sturma, who used to host Green in LA. It was a really great venue, and I'm so grateful to not only be his friend, but to publish his work. Please give it up for Rob Sturma, everybody.
Thank you, good sir. Although at Green, I always unmuted. I was always unmuted, so you did not learn that from me. This is about 90s horror. It's called Scream On. So it was the 90s, and we'd spent the decade previous getting hacked, as in machete hacked, and slashed, as in straight razor slashed. We were 80s babies raised on sequels where the horrors were men who were not men, demons born of man, occupying woods, camps, cabins, boiler rooms, living rooms. Single note piano songs became warning anthems. We had sex and we died. We drank and we died. We smoked pot and we died. But somewhere in the middle of this frenzy, we became punchlines, death puns. We multiplied like sequels, became formulas, rehashes, retreads, and it became time to breathe new life into our fears. So we deconstructed, made our fear into jokes, told our friends how to survive through the night. We slathered on soundtracks, cast ourselves to look like our favorite teen stars, like that might help us live longer, but not really. We still ran upstairs, still had unprotected sex to Sarah McLachlan tunes, still shotgun beers, answered the phone, opened the door, patted ourselves on the back for making it, all the while knowing that which does not kill us will probably do so in the sequel. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Rob. So Rob will be one of the...
Real quick, there's a whole bunch of great horror poems, not only in this anthology, but in the journal that Eric and I are on the editorial staff for, called Freeze Ray. So freezeraypoetry.com. Check us out all year round. We're scary.
Feel free to share a link, man, in the chat. So as I was saying, Rob is going to be one of the 4 poets at Moontide's next quartet reading, scheduled for Saturday, November 14th. I've shared a link. It's going to feature 2 past Moontide authors, 2 future Moontide authors. It's going to be Hanalena Fennell, Danya Akuli, Rob Sturma, and a new poet that I just got turned on to who's amazing. She was referred to me by Rich Ferguson, is Kelly Gray. She's fantastic. So that's going to be awesome. So we're going to have an intimate quartet Zoom reading on November 14th. So we hope you come check us out. Up next, so the other poetry venue that I went to a lot when I first started this crazy journey and became one of my home readings, and really does so much for so many poets in Southern California and has built such a wonderful community, is Ben Trigg of Two Idiots Peddling Poetry at the Ugly Mug in Orange. Hello, Ben.
Oh, first of all, that lineup for that quartet reading is amazing, and I'd like to think that I am one of the people who helped Rob become one of your authors by continuing to point out to him that his very good friend is a publisher and that his poems are amazing and that he needs to have a book that's out. Also, I have this little fox bat friend that may or may not stay. He's not, but we'll see. Maybe I can keep him up there. And now a poem. Thank you for lending me Rhyme Bowl. It's The Great Gremlin Hunt, Charlie Brown. There are rules, Chuck. You know that. You were warned about water and food after midnight, but the other kids were right when they called you a blockhead. You thought it'd be easy. Snoopy doesn't give you trouble, so how hard could a new pet be? I think Lucy's dying scream answered that question. Now you have to make things right. Gather Linus with his whip-like blanket and Patty with her home run swing. Go from home to home, save those lives you can, pray it doesn't rain. Now exclusively available on Apple TV.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. So Two Idiots Peddling Poetry happens on Zoom every Wednesday night until we can all join together in person again. And then it would be at the Ugly Mug in Orange. But yeah, if you want to know more about their online poetry reading, you can find them on Facebook, Two Idiots Peddling Poetry. So thank you very much, Ben. And we'll see you Wednesday. Mariano Zaro, are you still here? I saw you hop on. I didn't know if you wanted to read.
I'm not prepared. I'm just an audience today.
Just an audience? Okay, no problem. Yeah. We have one final reader, and it's fitting because she has way cooler horns than I have, and also is part of the Moontide family. She's one of our amazing staff. She's part of our marketing and publicity team and is going to be working as an author liaison. Please give it up for Ellen Weber, everybody. Ellen, are you with us?
Hello, yes I am.
See, better horns than me.
This has been such a great reading. Thank you all. So the poem I'm going to read is Tithe to Hell. The rubble pulses like a salt lamp, and I am a black-hatted girl on a hillside, hands covered in beads, fingers dripping tongues of amber and ash. I smear wax candles by thumb, I burn the names of my deceivers, put forth amorous proposals to the moon. My lips are stained with pomegranate. I draw the stars into my palm. I carve the forests with their falling. Take their iron, my naked sisters. Build me a pyre in the snow. Let me lie upon it. I am leaving this behind. My skin, my hair, my bones. When the lady on the moon swallowed her elixir of immortal life, did it burn her from the inside? Did she dissolve into incense like ghost money? Did it smell like honeysuckle? Is that what drove her husband as mad for her as I am? She sends her cicadas, her nightingale warbling at dawn, and I know it is time. I am stepping into the fire now. Will you ask me to stay? Reach your hand through the ritual for your little witch. Take it, and I will pull you to me. I won't go without you.
That is a great way to end the night. I won't go without you. Thank you so much, Ellen. Last announcement real quick. If you want to know how to support Moontide Press, you can become a patron. There's different patron and subscriber packages. Most of them get you 3 books a year, but you become a platinum patron for $100 and you get all the books we put out a year, regardless of how many books it is. I think we have a lineup of about 9 books scheduled for 2021. 2 of those are anthologies, and the rest are single titles. So I'm sharing that right now. So consider that, and join us and be part of the Moontide family as well. We're always striving to put out really great work. So thank you, everybody. This was really fantastic. I can't thank all of you enough for being a part of this project. Like I said earlier, it's incredibly dear to my heart. It was always a dream. As soon as I took over the press, I knew I wanted to put this anthology out, but I kind of needed to build a little bit of momentum taking over the press. So by the time I felt like that momentum had been built, I knew things were right to do Dark Ink. I want to give a shout out real quick to 2 amazing artists who worked on Dark Ink. Leslie White's a friend I went to high school with. She did this awesome cover, which was kind of reminiscent of the old EC horror comics. And then the logo on the back and this cool little demon guy is the work of Tyler Kinnunen, who actually is my tattoo artist now. He does really great work. Trigger Happy Tattoo. You can go find them online. So I want to give those 2 artists, 2 contributors to Dark Ink, a shout out, as well as the awesome Moontide team of Ellen, who I've already said thank you to, and Danya Akuli, who could not be here today. She's traveling back from Arizona. So thank you, everybody, so much. I'll leave the room open for just a few minutes so people can say their goodbyes and chit chat if they want. Happy Halloween, everybody. Be safe out there more now than ever before, and do something scary.